You wake up, you don't eat anything, and you go straight into your walk or your run because somewhere along the way you got told this is when your body burns the most fat. And you're not wrong. Your body genuinely is burning more fat in that exact moment. That part is true. But here's the frustrating thing almost nobody tells you: the number going up on the fat-burning side is not the number that decides what your body actually looks like 6 months from now. And if you're over 40, there's a second thing happening during that fasted walk that matters a lot more than the fat number, and most of the men doing this every single morning have never even heard of it. By the end of this video, I'm going to walk you through exactly what a fasted workout is doing inside your body, specifically past 40, that has nothing to do with fat loss at all. It's a mechanism most fitness influencers either don't know about or leave out entirely, because it doesn't fit the simple story they're selling you in a 60-second clip. Once you understand it, you'll know exactly whether fasted training is actually working for you, or quietly working against you while the scale tricks you into thinking it's a win. Here's what's actually happening inside your body during that walk. When you haven't eaten, your insulin levels drop low. Insulin is the hormone that tells your body to store energy. When it's low, your body switches gears and starts releasing stored fat, using it as fuel instead of the sugar it would normally reach for after a meal. So yes, during a fasted workout, a bigger share of the energy you're burning is genuinely coming from fat. Think of it like your car switching over to a different fuel tank. It doesn't mean the car goes any further, and it doesn't mean you get home any faster. It just means it's burning a different tank while it runs. That one distinction is really the whole video, so keep it in mind as we go. Now let's get into the 3 things that actually matter, because this is where the story most men have been told starts to fall apart. Point 1. Fasted training does not lead to more fat loss over time, and this has actually been tested directly, not just assumed. Researchers have reviewed multiple studies comparing people who trained fasted against people who ate a meal first, tracking their actual body fat over weeks and months, not just what was happening during a single workout on a single morning. And across that research, when you add it all up, there was no meaningful difference in how much fat people lost between the 2 groups. What this means for you is the promise that fasting before your walk speeds up your results simply doesn't hold up once you're looking at the bigger picture instead of one workout in isolation. Your body seems to compensate for it. Your appetite shifts a little, the energy you burn later in the day shifts a little, and by the time you zoom out to a week or a month, it evens itself back out. So if you've specifically been skipping breakfast before your walk because you believed it was accelerating your fat loss, the honest answer, based on the actual research, is that it probably isn't doing that on its own. And here's a detail that surprises most people once they hear it. Surveys of endurance athletes have found that professional and elite competitors are actually less likely to train fasted than everyday amateurs are. Think about that for a second. The people whose entire career depends on getting the absolute most out of their training, the ones with full-time coaches and dietitians managing every detail, are not the ones skipping breakfast before a hard session. If fasted training genuinely gave a real performance or fat loss edge, you'd expect the opposite to be true. What this tells you is that the fasted cardio trend is much more of an internet fitness culture habit than it is a strategy backed by the people who actually have the most to gain from doing whatever works best. Point 2, and this is the one that matters most for you specifically if you're over 40. There's a study where researchers had both younger men and older men walk on a treadmill for 45 minutes at a fairly moderate, comfortable pace, all of them in a fasted state. Nobody had eaten. What they measured afterward was muscle protein breakdown, basically a marker of how much your muscle tissue is being broken down and used for fuel during and after that kind of exercise. In both groups, that breakdown increased shortly after the walk. That part was identical. But here's exactly where it's split. In the younger men, that elevated breakdown shut itself back off within about an hour. Their bodies switched back to normal fairly quickly. In the older men, it stayed elevated for longer. Their bodies took more time to switch back out of breakdown mode and into a more balanced state. What this means for you is fasted walking isn't secretly wrecking your muscle overnight. That is not the claim I'm making here, and anyone who tells you that is overselling it. The real issue is timing. Your body holds onto that breakdown signal for longer than it would have when you were 25. And layered on top of that, the research on aging muscle shows something called anabolic resistance, which basically means your muscle building response to food and to exercise is already slower and weaker than it used to be, purely as a function of age. So you've got a longer breakdown window landing directly on top of an already slower rebuilding response. That combination, not some dramatic muscle wasting event, is the real reason fasted training deserves more caution after 40 than the generic advice you'll find online ever mentions. Point 3, and this is honestly the one worth actually keeping in your routine. The most consistent finding across the research isn't about fat loss and it isn't about muscle at all. It's about insulin sensitivity. Training in a fasted state has repeatedly been shown to improve how effectively your body manages blood sugar and insulin over time. meaning your body gets better at handling the food you eat without your blood sugar spiking as hard or your insulin having to work as hard to bring it back down. That's a genuinely meaningful benefit for a man over 40, right around the age when insulin resistance starts becoming more common, and starts quietly setting the stage for bigger problems down the road. What this means for you is the honest reason to consider fasted training in the first place isn't the reason you've probably been told. It's not a fat loss shortcut, and it was never going to be. It's a tool for metabolic health, for keeping your blood sugar and your insulin response working the way they're supposed to. That's a completely different reason to do it than the one plastered across most fitness content. And it happens to be the one that's actually backed by solid evidence. Here's the part that puts all three of these points into context. Your body's ability to switch into fat-burning mode the moment you haven't eaten isn't a fitness hack somebody invented. It's a survival mechanism that's been with us for a very long time. It evolved for a world where food wasn't guaranteed every few hours, where the ability to still move, still hunt, still function on an empty stomach was genuinely the difference between eating again tomorrow and not making it that far. Evolution built that system to keep you alive between meals, not to give you a leaner midsection in time for summer. Your body isn't broken, and it isn't failing you. It's doing exactly what it was designed to do. The mismatch is that somewhere along the way, we took a survival tool built for scarcity and tried to repurpose it into a modern fat loss strategy, and the two things were simply never built for the same job. Let me tell you about a guy I know, mid-50s, disciplined, been doing fasted walks 5 mornings a week for almost a year now, because he read somewhere that it was the single most efficient way to lose weight. And in a sense, it worked. The scale genuinely moved, but a few months into it, he started noticing small things. He couldn't open a stubborn jar the way he used to without needing help. His grip just felt weaker than it used to be. He found himself gassed halfway up a flight of stairs that never used to bother him at all. He wasn't doing anything wrong, technically, he was following the advice exactly as it's usually handed out. What he was missing wasn't effort, and it definitely wasn't discipline. It was the piece nobody ever told him, which is that the thing he was quietly losing along with the fat mattered just as much as the fat itself, maybe more. It wasn't until a checkup with his doctor, where his grip strength was measured and flagged as low for his age, that he even connected the dots back to his morning routine. Nothing dramatic happened. No single workout caused it. It was months of the same small pattern, repeated every morning, quietly adding up in a direction he never intended. So here's what you actually know now that you didn't know 10 minutes ago. Fasted cardio isn't some magic fat loss shortcut. The research simply doesn't back that claim, no matter how confidently it gets repeated online. And for a man over 40, the real conversation was never really about fat in the first place. It's about protecting the muscle you already have at exactly the age when your body takes longer to recover from that fasted state than it used to, and needs more help holding on to strength, not less. Tell me in the comments, do you train fasted? And be honest with yourself here. Have you actually noticed a real difference in your strength, good or bad, since you started? I read every single reply. And if this changed how you're thinking about your morning routine, the most useful thing you can do right now is subscribe, because this entire channel is built around cutting through exactly this kind of fitness advice. The kind that sounds right on the surface, but quietly skips the one part that actually matters for you.